Hello everybody! If you've watched my previous two videos, you know that I've had some rare success with German literature recently. I have now finished Dunkelblum by Eva Menasse. It took me almost 2 months to read this book, but that's just because it is the kind of book that you want to read slowly, or I do at least. It's the kind of book that I want to spend time with and not rush through it. It is a book that paints the picture of a whole village, and spending 2 months in this village on and off, I felt like I've lived a lifetime in this village. And that's a feeling I think that you can't get if you rush through this book. So how long it takes me to read a book isn't always a measure of how much I enjoy the book. Anyhow, this book has put me in the mood to try and read and try some more German literature. Maybe not immediately, but definitely still this year. And in the spirit of the moment, I thought I'd share with you my German TBR. That is, all the German books on my physical bookshelves. Let's start with the classics section. I have some gaps to fill there. And one such gap is Effi Briest by Theodor Fontane. This is kind of the German Anna Karenina, if you like. This was published in 1895 after first having been published in a serialized form in a magazine. And to be honest, I wasn't going to read this one, but then I found this copy, this very high quality used copy in a little free library, and I thought that this must be a sign. Another big one, maybe the big one that I should have read by now, is The Leiden des jungen Werthers, or The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe. This is an epistolary novel published in 1774 about the sorrows of this young man called Werther, who is suffering from unrequited love and ultimately commits suicide. I don't think it's a spoiler, seeing as the Werther effect is named after this novel and after this character, although the original Werther effect was probably an urban legend. And after I've read The Sorrows of Young Werther, I can then read The New Sorrows of Young W by Ulrich Plenzdorf, which is a retelling of The Sorrows of Young Werther set in the German Democratic Republic, and kind of draws a picture of the society of its time. This is obviously a modern classic, but back to the classics. I have several tales of E.T.A. Hoffmann still to read. He's most famous internationally, I think, for The Nutcracker, but also for The Sandman. My personal favorite is The Golden Pot, which is kind of a tour de force through the history of the arcane and magical traditions. E.T.A. Hoffmann is like the master of the uncanny, the Schauerroman, the spooky novel. It's a bit like the Gothic novel, but more playful, less doom and gloom, and kind of more horror and more mayhem and spectacle. I've enjoyed everything that I've read by him so far. Looking forward to reading more. My next one will probably be Das Fräulein von Scuderi, Mademoiselle de Scuderi. I don't know how to translate it, which is a kind of the German Miss Marple, but it's just this one tale. There isn't a like 500 book series about this Mademoiselle de Scuderi. Next, I have an Austrian classic, which I actually bought because Eva Menasse, who wrote Dunkelblum, recommended it. It is Radetzkymarsch by Joseph Roth. This was published in 1932, and it chronicles the demise of the Habsburg Empire and the end of the combined kingdom of Austria and Hungary. Chronicles it by way of telling the story of one family who, towards the end of the empire, manages to be promoted into nobility status, only to have all their achievements run through their fingers almost immediately like sand. This is apparently the big Austrian classic. looking forward to reading this very much. Rounding out the classic section is Hermann Hesse, through whose work I'm slowly making my way over the course of the years, and I have these 4 works by him still on my shelves unread for now. I mean, for now it's these 4, but he was extremely prolific, and I keep finding books by him in little free libraries, so it might not stay this low number for long. Anyhow, the ones that I have are Steppenwolf, a collection of his fairy tales, Narziss&Goldmund, Narcissus and Goldmund, let's just keep it at that, and the Glasperlenspiel game. Enough with the classics, let's get to the contemporary section. And there are a few names and titles here that I think you'll recognize. The first one, I hope you recognize. If you've paid attention to this video so far, you should. It's Die Hauptstadt, the capital, by Eva Menasse, who, yes, is indeed related to Eva Menasse. It's her older brother, I think. This is a satirical novel about the political culture surrounding the EU Parliament in Brussels. And to be perfectly honest, so I bought this book, I'd heard about it, and then I found it at a used bookshop for a very low price, and I bought it. Read the first couple of pages, and to be honest, he is a proponent of the writing style, the German literature speak writing style that I detest so much, that I'm downright allergic to. So I don't know if he is the author for me. I'm definitely going to give the book another try sometime though. The situation is kind of similar with my next novel, which is Tyll by Daniel Kehlmann. Kehlmann is the author of Measuring the World, I think it is called in English, Die Vermessung der Welt, which is a highly acclaimed novel about Alexander von Humboldt. And I read the first 2 pages of that one, and that was more than enough. I put it down in disgust. Luckily, I didn't spend any money on it, got it from my parents' bookshelf. Again, German literature speak, but one of the worst cases I had ever put my eyes on until then. Maybe not the worst one ever, I can say, 15, 20 years later, whenever. However, I'm still willing to give this one a chance just because the premise sounds so great. So this is a tour de force again, this time through the 30 Years' War, and we are witnessing the time through the eyes or from the perspective of Till Eulenspiegel, who is a famous fool, like a king's fool, a king's wit. He is a very famous folklore creature. He is at least half mythical. But even though he is so famous, I don't think I've ever heard about anybody writing a novel about him or from his perspective. And this just sounds like such an amazing premise that I just hope that this one won't be as horrific in terms of writing style and, German literature speak and all that. Next up, Der Trafikant, the Tobaccoist, by Robert Seethaler, who wrote A Whole Life. This is the first book by him that I ever bought, but it will probably be the last that I read. I've read 2 other books by him, and I was less than impressed by them, let's put it that way. He wrote an account of the last couple of months or even weeks in the life of Gustav Mahler, who is one of my favorite composers of all time. And he did the unforgivable, Robert Seethaler. He made Gustav Mahler boring. And I can't forgive that. I then gave A Whole Life a chance because I found it for free. And I thought it was so banal, I put it away after like 5 pages. I'm only giving this one a chance because I already had it on my shelves when I discovered that Robert Seethaler is probably not the author for me. And I hope that this one will be an outlier, because it is a story about Sigmund Freud and it should be so interesting, um, unless Robert Seethaler makes Sigmund Freud boring as well. I think it is well within his means to do so. Same time, but probably very different vibes, is Der Nasse Fisch by Volker Kutscher, which is the first book in the Babylon Berlin series, and it is also called Babylon Berlin in the English translation. Not sure what the other books are called. I don't even know what they are called in German, to be honest. And now we get into favorite author corner, or at least authors with whom I've had positive experiences before. So first we have Neptunation by Dietmar Dart. Dietmar Dart is the author of one of the best science fiction novels, space opera adventures that I've ever read, called Pulsarnacht in German, which unfortunately hasn't been translated into English. And this one sounds and looks just simply amazing as well. It is an alternate timeline, alternate history kind of science fiction novel, which starts during the Cold War period and then imagines a future in which the geopolitical constellations played out very differently than they did in fact do in history. I've wanted to pick this up for a long, long time. It's just the sheer size of it that has put me off somewhat, because I'm not the biggest reader of space operas. They always make me feel a little bit icky, the setting does. And so there's kind of little incentive for me to pick up a space opera that is this big, this long. And then there is Herkunft, or Where You Come From, by Sasha Stanisic. This one won the German Book Prize a few years ago, but actually the book that I picked up first by Sasha Stanisic, because it sounded more interesting to me, to be honest, was Vor dem Fest, or Before the Feast. And it was just amazing. 5 stars, and you know how skimpy I am with my 5 stars, but this one got 5 stars for me. Absolutely amazing portrait of a small East German town or village. It was very similar in some aspects to Dunkelblum by Eva Menasse, so this seems to be my kind of book. But this one is a highly autobiographical novel about a family and their young son who immigrated to Germany from Bosnia. And this is about their experiences as asylum seekers and immigrants. I expect this to be pretty episodical and maybe not the biggest of page turners, but if Sasha Stanisic's previous book, Before the Feast, is any indication, then it's going to be a very interesting read. And my last book is the last one that I bought and also the most recent publication. It is Ein Sommer in Niendorf, A Summer in Niendorf by Heinz Strunk, which was nominated for the German Book Prize, I think 2 years ago. And it is a story that might sound sappy at first. It is about a man in, I don't know, a midlife crisis or suffering from kind of disaffection towards his life, and is going to this seaside town for a summer. I think he is a writer, so he's kind of taking time out from his everyday life, going to the seaside town to maybe make a change. And apparently the change is quite dramatic, and the people he meets make quite an impression on him. But like I said earlier, this might sound like a sappy story or your typical fluffy beach read. This is, I think, is a very satirical, sarcastic novel, and probably even a pretty existential look into the abyss. So it's definitely not a fluffy beach read, despite the beach on the cover. However, I'm probably going to read this as a Bead read. This will probably be the next German book from this deck that I pick up during the course of the summer, and I hope I can tell you more about it very soon. It sounds like a very interesting, very not experimental, but definitely extremely creative novel. And yeah, I hope we can talk about it soon. So I hope you found some inspiration in this video, some recommendations maybe, although obviously I can't vouch for the quality of any of these books. At best, I can vouch for the quality of some of the authors. Do you have any German books on your TBR? It doesn't matter if they are in translation or in the original. Do let me know in the comments, and I'll see you again very soon with my next video. Bye guys!